We have 5 presentations in 1 hour during this session, and we start the session with the paper from Kausar Abdul Malik on climate change, its impact and mitigation technologies for agriculture and the environment. Dr. Kausar, are you there?
Okay, Aaron. You are muted, Dr. Kausar.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Now, can you hear me now?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I am to begin with, I would like to thank Dr. Adil Beltaji, my old colleague and friend, to have invited me and to given me this opportunity to meet some of my old colleagues also, virtually Dr. Raj Paroda and Mohan Saxena. It's a long time we have met, thanks to pandemic and all these issues. Well, I have been for a long time involved with biosaline agriculture, which some of you have already talked about. And then, I've been in Islamabad for about 10 years, pushing papers and following the policy makers. And now I am back to academia for the last couple of years. I have established my own laboratory, which is School of Life Sciences. And it is
Brother Kausar, your voice is not very clear. And
right?
Please, if you make your computer closer to you. Thank you.
Can I use the...
Okay, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
If you bring the computer closer to you, maybe it will work. It's unless you have mics on your headset.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
It's okay. We hear you, but it's fine. Please go ahead.
Okay. As I was saying that now its voice is bounding back. You see, it's very strange.
I think it has been closed. We don't hear you now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. As I was saying that I have been working in Islamabad for a number of years, and I was chairman of the Pakistan Agricultural Research Council, and I had a lot of meeting with Dr. Taj Paroda and all my colleagues. So now I'm back in the lab, and I've been for the last couple of years. I've been involved in developing biotechnology, especially agricultural biotechnology. And can I share my screen now?
Yes, go ahead, please. It's open. The screen is open for all the participants.
Can you see it now?
Oh, yep. Now it's okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Kausar.
Okay, thank you. You see, I mean, lots of things you have already talked about. And this is, global agriculture is estimated to account for about 20% of the total anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases. This is extremely important to keep in mind. And the future scenario, as we have been told by IPCC and all other organizations, that we will have an increase in temperature, and the current floods in Pakistan are also cause of this increase in temperature. If you recall, in July and August, we had an extreme high temperatures, which resulted in glacial melt, and also resulted in increased rainfall, you see. But anyway, these were already the predictions through all the models and all that. And to be very precise now, the climate change culprits are that carbon dioxide is the main contributor to the greenhouse gases, and also includes the methane, then nitrous oxides and the SF6 and others. And these are the other categories are methane emissions from rice cultivation and from carbon dioxide, release of nitrous oxides and all that. All said and done, the agriculture accounts for 44% of anthropogenic methane emissions and about 70% of all nitrous gases resulting from the fertilizer use. Also, water resources are definitely affected. Of climate change and water resources expected to be significant due to increase in temperature and would result in increased water demand because of higher evaporation rates. And it may also increase rainfall due to additional moisture supplied to the clouds because of higher evaporation from the sea surface. Increased rainfall may cause increase in magnitude of flood. This week's Nature also brought out an article on this phenomena, and they also assume that because of the very increase in temperature, the rainfall and glacial melts are there, you see. Anyway, now let me briefly talk about the mitigation measures for climate change. As have been said by Dr. Taj Peroda also, that agroforestry or afforestation is the most important mitigation technology for CO2 sequestration, because this is CO2. If we could reduce the level of CO2 in our atmosphere, it will directly result in the decrease in temperatures. And for other purposes, we have to adopt all resource conservation technology. You see, these technologies we have been talking about all along, you see, and among these are most important for us are the desert land travelers to conserve irrigation water, because this allows a total leveling of the land, you see. And then we have been introducing high efficiency irrigation system, zero tillage, and we have to stop burning crop residues, reduce use of agrochemicals, and use biopesticides and IPM and biofertilizers. And then very interestingly and most importantly, technologies for recycling of methane emissions. And then introduce the drought and salinity tolerance and temperature tolerance in all our commercial crop varieties, and also diversified cropping patterns. These are all things which have already been talked about. Dr. Beltaji spoke very extensively on that. Taj Peroda also mentioned all this. So, but our important area is to use of biotechnology to overcome some of these mitigation technologies, you see. And for us, for climate smart agriculture, we have all these areas, starting from stress tolerance to enhanced nitrogen use efficiency, efficient carbon assimilation, microbial recycling of methane from paddy rice, then disease resistance introduced through microbial inoculations, and then other areas are water conservation, low cost production mechanization, azer inputs, agriculture, meteorological and agroecological services, conservation agriculture, and all that. So among all these which are related to biotechnology, we have been doing some work, and I will just introduce you to this. I mean, in addition to all this, there is a lot of activity going on in Pakistan at the moment also on using biotechnological tools, and now the genome editing using the CRISPR-Cas9 is very important.
Dr. Kauthar, you have 2 minutes to conclude, please.
Okay, all right. I will do that. Okay, I will first run through some of the areas that we have already done and published. And you see, we have been doing for the drought tolerance also, and also the enhanced nitrogen use efficiency. And we have also done for using the transcription factors. And these are all things that we have been doing. And these are, to summarize all these, heat with increased bioavailability of iron and zinc. This is our most important project, which we have already released some of the material. Then vitamin B6 enriched, and salt and herbicide tolerance, etc. These have all been published, you see. And this is the new work which we are doing on methane. And this is to isolate the bacteria of methanotrophic, which can eat up methane while in the aerobic layer of rice, you see. And then we have a strong work on biofertilizers. We have been doing it for wheat, maize, cowpea, wheat, etc. And then some of it has already been commercialized. And these are all published materials, you see. So I think I have taken my 2 minutes. I would like to thank all of you for your attention. And these are the agencies who are funding us, like Higher Education Commission, Pakistan Academy of Sciences, Pakistan Agricultural Research Council, Punjab Agricultural Research Board, and Pakistan Science Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kausar, for the presentation and the information included in it. It is very useful. Thank you very much. For the sake of time, I think we will move to the next speaker, and we will leave the discussion to the end of the session. The second presentation is by Dr. Magdi Madkour. Dr. Magdi Madkour will speak about gene editing for adaptation of dryland crops to changing climate.
So the co-author, Dr. Sameh Hassanin, Professor Sameh Hassanin.
Dr. Sameh Hassanin will represent the paper.
Good morning. It's my honor and pleasure to be here with you. I will represent the presentation which made by Dr. Magdi Madkour. Can you please? Can you please? Thank you. How can I switch slides, please? عايز اشوف السكرين.
You don't have the pointer?
No, I can't find my presentation here.
Doctor, the team of Dr. Badawi is supposed to give you this.
ممكن نشوف. It's my presentation will be titled by gene editing for adaptation of dry land crops to changing climates. Slides kindly provided by Dr. Magdi Madkour. First of all, climate change. It's change in the climate over time, which is due to natural availability from human activity, attributes directly to direct or indirect to human activities by altering composition of global atmosphere, or in addition to climate variability observed over comparable time periods. Categories of climate change affecting coastal zones, coral reefs, water resources, human health, and agriculture. There is causes and effects of climate change. Causes listed in rapid industrialization, energy used, agriculture practice, deforestation, consumer practice, and main effect is due to will be rising temperature, rising sea level, increased extreme weather event, and many effects. It's projected to be decrease agricultural productivity in tropics and subtropics for almost any amount of warming. So we need to at least double food production to feed more than 3 billion people will be adding to world population by next 3 years. In Egypt, many main crops will be affected due to climate change by 2050. Our challenges is due to limited arable land, large population growth, and there is only one main source for water supply, which is Nile River. Estimated water use will be insufficient if there is no action done. The world's wet region are getting wetter and its dry areas are getting drier much more quickly than we thought. Changes that threaten the availability of water create new risks to people's health and food supply and for environment. Why should we care? Because it's in Egypt, our main areas will suffer from high risk of water leakage. So we have to make an action. Breeding. To create traits or blends over time in order to introduce desired characters. Conventional breeding perform cross between varieties, induce mutations, selection, growth, future generation, but it's time consuming. So we need new technologies, and actually there are many technologies arise. For example, gene editing. Genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is to modify genetic germplasm to make plants more productive and more adaptive to the climate and to environment it's cultivated in. Genetic engineering is to construct a gene and insert this gene into the genetic germplasm. It's due to next gen sequencing, and it's due to revolution of an instrument in biological field and biological experiments represented in next gen sequencing. We can make more understanding for the genetic germplasms. Modification of plant need to be performed to genomes, transcriptomes, proteomes, and even metabolome of the plant. First phase with to manipulate genes through sequencing and RNA which present transcriptome of the germplasm, proteins, metabolites, and even the profiling for the whole organism. And in presence of bioinformatics and massive data provided by this field, we can make molecular bleeding and transgenic to improve crops. Genetic engineering performed at many levels. In the DNA level, we can make transformation like we achieved in Agiri by gene gun. We can introduce new genes to make adaptation. There are many success stories where I will represent two of them, which have been made in Agiri, like introduce HAL gene to wheat germplasm to be drought tolerance. First picture, it's a control plant irrigated 6 times for these in this season, and picture B, it's transgenic plants irrigated just 2 times and depending on rain fed for its water resources. This experiment made in Rafah and other location in Marsa Matruh, and it's increased about 2% of compared to non-transgenic plant. Other example, development wheat for fungal resistance. It's introduced by chitinase gene, which degrade the cell wall of fungus. Here is a preliminary experiment which have been done in Agiri field, segregation of transgenics, and we achieve homozygous family and experiment it in Gemeza station. This is our borders conflicted with many type of rusts, stem rust, leaf rust, and yellow rust, and normal borders. And there are our transgenics. Here is non-transgenic plant in adjacent with transgenic plant in the same location. So omics can be used to inform marker selection breeding, genomic selection, and site-directed nucleases. Plant production diversity can be characterized for agronomic traits, and if there is sufficient information for its genomic and transcriptomic profiles, we can be by using computer algorithms can accelerate the selection of this gene and can be edited to perform adaptive plants. Genome editing, it's like molecular scissors, can insert, substitute, and delete or invert genes within the targeted genomes. Creates double-strand breaks by meganucleases, zinc finger nucleases, or talons can be achieved by genome editing. Here some of these technologies, abstracting for these technologies, and the breakthrough comes with CRISPR. Genome editing, as I said, can be achieved by many technologies, but CRISPR make an opportunity to make more editing. In compared compare with traditional breeding, here is a timeline for regular breeding. It takes about 1 to 15 years to screen and targeting traits to be accumulated in novel varieties, and through it takes about 120 months, and through gene editing, this period can be abstracted to just 2 or 3 years. Many breeding programs tries to abstracting time by make more than 1 season per years, but by genome editing, we can abstract this time even more. Genome editing application can be for research purposes or eliminate undesirable product, negatively impact food quality, accumulate metabolites of values like fatty acids, simultaneously create mutation in multiple gene families, create varieties resistant to pests or diseases, and many others. There are many players in genome editing tools like nucleases, base editor, and prime editor. CRISPR-Cas can make deletion. Base editor can make point mutation. Prime editor can make even replacement of pieces of DNA. I tried to summarize these technologies in my presentation, but the main issue that omics can help with plant breeding. We can targeted many levels within plant to improve its quality and its adaptation. We can make multiplexing for targeting more than 1 trait in editing, and the availability of data and big data can help in our decision. At last, breeding for plant, it's not fashion. It's have been done for more than 10,000 years from ancient Egyptian, and it still develops until we can make editing within our genomes. The composite is genome editing has a lot of potential to produce improved plant, but its potential can only be maximized when coupled with knowledge and experience. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sameh, for the very informative presentation that should have had 1 hour to present it appropriately. Now we will move to the next presentation by Dr. Hassan El-Shaer. Dr. Hassan El-Shaer is a professor at the Desert Research Institute of the Ministry of Agriculture in the Animal Production and Rangeland Utilization. And the presentation is on improving the livelihood of smallholder farmers impacted by climate change in Sinai, Egypt, through optimal utilization of integrated saline agriculture system, a case study. Dr. Hassan, I think you will allow me to have 12 minutes and leave 2 minutes for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to be with you here through this interesting conference. So I will present a real project conducted in Sinai Peninsula to give you some information about the how we mitigate the climate change and desertification in Sinai. This slide shows you some information about Sinai, and you know everything about it. But there is an urgent need to transfer and adapt integrated saline agriculture production system to enhance the small farmer livelihoods. This is the situation in Sinai. The waterlogging and salinity, so particularly soil salinity, are the major problem of the impact of the climate change. 15 years ago, excuse me, there was an agreement between the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture in Dubai and Desert Research Center to conduct some projects funded by different international organizations aimed to improve the livelihood of farmers in salinity affected environment through the model for developing integrated management package technologies for economic and sustainable crop livestock production system. This model actually could be transferred to other similar marginal locations in Egypt. The global goal is improving the farmer livelihoods through cultivation of salt-tolerant plants, whether fodder crops or cereal crops, even oil crops. This could be achieved through two angles or two axes: to produce mass production, and the mass production will be used for animal feed, then will produce animal products to raise the farmer incomes. On the other side, the cultivation of such salt-tolerant plants could be used to produce seed production, which could be direct cash money for raising the livelihood of the farmers. This is the technical project objectives. Actually, it is aimed to develop Bedouin farmers' participatory efficient seed production and delivery system of selected. So it was very important to produce enough seeds that tolerate salinity and drought at the same time. Enhancing capacity building, it was very important activities of the project. The project was conducted, the project's actually activities were conducted at both research and small holder levels in two regions of Sinai. They are different in saline soil, and they are also different in the source of irrigated water. This is the sites of the project situation. You can see here the red color, the village. We're working around with around 10 villages distributed in the North Sinai and South Sinai. This is the main inputs of the projects. The first output was the development and the transfer of farmer-based seed production technology and the delivery system for wide-scale cultivar adoption. The second output was production and the dissemination of package of efficient forage production and the utilization suitable for marginal environment. The third output, food production and animal product processing. And the fourth one, the profitability and the assessment of profitability and the impact of the introduced forage, the system, I mean the package. The last one was the enhancing the capacity building, which is very important. As I said, seed production, it was very important to introduce new cultivars or new plants and under any conditions. So we were keen to produce enough seeds from different plant species. This is the activities of the output number 1, and aimed actually to produce sufficient amounts of seeds of the target varieties or accessions needed for adoption and scaling up. This is the seeds we brought from ICBA through ICRISAT, and you can see the number of genotypes of the different plant species, and so we received around 11 plant species with different varieties or with different genotypes. We tested all these plants at our research stations in North Sinai Station and South Sinai Research Station, because they said both sides are different in everything. This is the most promising salt-tolerant genotypes we got. Then we adapted these varieties. Then we distributed to the farmers, free of charge, of course, to expand the cultivation of these plant species, particularly sorghum, bear millet, barley, fodder beet, triticale, safflower. I'll take you around to know the plants, the species. This sorghum, bear millet. By the way, we use different irrigation system in these lands. So we use, as you can see, drip irrigation and irrigated pipe systems. And this is also for triticale. This is fodder beets, is safflower. This is quinoa, used also with the drip irrigation system. This is the Rochetta, as we said, the integrated management package for seed production. So we tested all this package under the research station. Then we give it to the farmers. We taught the farmer how to do this. Then he will do it himself with the other farmers. So for the plant with this one was for the seed production, and this is one for the forage production, particularly for sorghum or bear millet or triticale and safflower and fodder beet. We took care of the intercropped and we system, and we also take care of the irrigation system introduced in the irrigation. This is the intercropping approach with between halophyte and salt-tolerant plant to ensure sufficient and enough fodder crops around the year for the farmers. So he will not be able to buy any food materials from outside his field. This is another sort of intercropping. This is the different, the fresh yield and of bear millet. This is just for example. We have a lot of data about that. This is done in 5 sites of the project, and it's a comparison between the integrated management package and traditional package, and you can see the difference in the production between the traditional and integrated management. We also tackled this some practice for irrigation and drainage system, and this is you can see the drainage system on your right side here, right hand here, and this is we estimated the water use efficiency using the integrated management system and the others. Concerning the crop, concerning animal production practices and the value added, we took care of the animal. This was the first time to grow berseem under heavily saline condition in North Sinai, and okay. This is the integrated management package concerning the livestock production, utilization of some nutritional technology for processing, and this is the main fodder crops we tested for the nutritive value. For example, total digestible nutrients or dry matter intake per kilogram body weight. And this is the main fodder crops we distributed and scaled up among the farmers. And this is the plants for silage. This is the silage ingredients. This is how we make silage. This is the feed block making. It was very interesting to distribute this technology among the farmers because it is a very simple machine and you can produce enough feed for animal all around year. And this is how is it. And also we use the fish farm effluent to grow some halophytes, some salt-tolerant plants, particularly barley or sorghum or doch. That plant can tolerate up to 5,000-6,000 parts per million. And this is the model here. And in case the milk production was increased, we have to establish a dairy milk production and processing unit to make a sustainable system for this project. And this is how we taught the farmers, the ladies, the women, how to produce cheese and yogurt from the extra milk. We took care of the farmer field school, of course, and this is the field days. And this is a very important thing. We started 10 years ago, but nobody take care of us. We introduced some plants to be used for food production to solve the shortage of feed production, mainly from quinoa and pearl millet and oat. And this is the training we did for the farmers. 1 minute only. This is the different food products from the quinoa. As you can see, different kinds from the bitifor, burek, and I don't know the name, in cakes and pizza. 40% of quinoa and 60% of wheat. And this is the oat, which is salt-tolerant plant also, can be used with different medicinal ingredients. And this is the main outcomes of the project. We have 216 direct beneficiaries and 434 indirect. And we produced at that time around 2,000 tons of silage. And this is the information. If you need any information, we are willing to provide you. The conclusion is, I said this is just a model to be transferred in similar marginal area in Egypt and in other Arabic countries, even in the region. So utilization fragile ecosystem resources impacted by climate change in North and Sinai in a more sustainable integrated model is a must. Adapting seed forage crop to be grown under saline environment integrated with livestock production is an opportunity to contribute to the local socioeconomic development of a small farmer's livelihood. It is important to replicate this model in saline marginal region. Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Hassan Shar. Professor Hassan is really doing a wonderful effort in North Sinai, and we hope that you can spread this knowledge to other places as well under the harsh climate and the changing climate. Thank you very much. Now we go to the next presentation by Dr. Yasser Shabana. Dr. Yasser is here. Okay, online. Thank you, Dr. Yasser. Dr. Yasser is presenting an impact of climate change on wheat yellow rust epidemic in Egypt. Dr. Yasser is a plant pathology department, Faculty of Agriculture, Mansoura University, Egypt. And I will appreciate Dr. Yasser to conclude in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
أنا سلكتها. أنا اخترتها من هنا، كانت في هنا بتاع شير سكرين، أنا عملت شير سكرين. طب هو شير بس. Can you see the presentation, please? Hello? Can you see
The voice, Dr. Yasser, your voice has to be clearer than this. Bring the microphone closer to you and go ahead.
Yes, but you see the presentation on the screen?
Yeah, full screen, please.
Okay. I have the honor to join you today. My topic is impact of climate change on wheat yellow rust epidemics in Egypt. This research is part of a Newton Impact Scheme project.
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Please start slideshow.
What?
Please start slideshow. Make it full screen. The presentation isn't full screen.
أيوة.
This is okay?
Yes.
No, it's still not full screen. Can you approve the remote control request?
All right. Now it is okay?
Okay.
Dr.
1
Yasser,
minute.
down in the banner, down.
It should be full screen.
Just beside 74%, you have to press the full screen. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. This research is part of a Newton Impact Scheme project in collaboration with researchers from Mansoura University, Egypt, University of Hertfordshire, UK, Agricultural Research Center, Egypt, City of Scientific Research and Technological Applications, Alexandria, and ICARDA. Climate change directly influences crop diseases, increasing food insecurity by decreasing crop yield and increasing numbers of people at risk of hunger. This picture is yellow rust, or you call it also stripe rust, which is the most destructive disease on wheat in Egypt and in many other countries.
Dr. Yasser,
Yes.
if you bring the microphone closer to you because we cannot hear you. The slides is okay, but your voice is not okay.
Is this okay? Is this
It's not
okay now?
working.
Working? This is my microphone on my mouth. So, do you hear me now? Better? Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Dr. Yasser, please continue. The timer is running.
So, these are the typical symptoms of yellow rust on wheat. Symptoms start to appear during February every year. Our objectives are to analyze historic data for wheat yellow rust disease to corresponding weather data, develop weather-dependent disease models to estimate disease epidemics, provide farmers, agronomists, breeders, and the government with short to long-term measure to minimize threats to food security from climate change by adapting new crop production techniques. So, disease scores, we call it coefficient of infection of wheat yellow rust, were recorded in late February, early March, on 6 winter wheat cultivars in 7 governorates and 8 growing seasons from 2012 to 2020. Data from Al-Bahira, Kafr Sheikh, Al-Manufiyya, and the Bani Suef were used for model calibration, and those from Al-Sharqiyya, Al-Fayoum, and Al-Nubariya used for validation. 2 cultivars were tested. One was very susceptible, which was the Mesa 11, and the other was moderately susceptible, which was MES1. To take advantage of the data generated for future climate change scenarios,
اي تليفون هيبقى موجود هاخده واحطه في كوبايه ميه. ده كلام ما ينفعش. الناس من العالم كله بتتفرج علينا. اتفضل. Please, yeah.
all right. To take advantage of the data generated for future climate change scenarios, the best linear regression models were determined on monthly accumulated rainfall and minimal, maximal, and average monthly mean temperatures between December and February. So our results showed that there was little disease up to 2016. And from 2016 up, it was increasing disease due because of more favorable conditions and emerging a new race of the pathogen. I will skip this for the time limit. These two. The models were used to predict the coefficient of infection in 2030, 50, 70, and 90, using weather conditions predicted by large weather generator, using the global climate model, GIS, with using two pathways, RCP 4.5 and RCP 8.5. For Gemeza, which is the susceptible cultivars, all scenarios predict coefficient of infection at 100% for the two pathways. For MES1, which is the moderately susceptible cultivar, coefficient infection increased from 30% in 2020 to 60% afterwards. And we know that the pathway 8.5 predicts higher temperature than the other pathway 4.5. See here the predicted coefficient of infection decreased to 50% for 2070 and 2090. This decrease might be explained by the fact that temperature more than 25 degrees centigrade starts to inhibit the pathogen growth. So in conclusion, the susceptible cultivar Gemeza 11 has to be stopped and not cultivated anymore, since all scenarios predicted coefficient infection at 100% from 2030 on. Even the moderately susceptible cultivar MES1 should be replaced with more resistant cultivars such as Giza 171. This work highlights the need to develop adaptation strategies to mitigate the impact of climate change on wheat diseases and food production in Egypt. What could be the mitigation strategies? First, breeding of disease-resistant cultivars using recent...
Dr. Yasser, can you conclude in 2 minutes, please?
Yes, I'm finished. Breeding disease-resistant cultivars using recent breeding techniques such as CRISPR-Cas, which are an urgent way to cope with the future climate change. Using new technologies for surveilling of disease outbreaks, such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and geographical information system and wide area management programs. This can help in monitoring and mapping changes in geographical distribution of the disease hotspot and predicting its future dynamics. Shifting sowing dates of crops to change the plant pathogen synchrony, and developing a new effective fungicides with multiple mode of action also can help. This is the research team, and here the UK team visiting our lab. More research teams. We have to acknowledge funding by the Egyptian Science, Technology and Innovation Funding Authority, STIFA, which was called before STDF. The UK Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy through British Council Newton Musharrafa projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yasser, for the presentation and for the information included in it. Thank you. The last presentation in this session is by Dr. Vinay Nangia. Dr. Vinay will present on water for food, water for life, the Drylands Challenge. Dr. Vinay is a leader of research program on soil, water, and agronomy at ICARDA. Please, Doctor.
Thank you so much, and happy to be here. I know we are running a little behind schedule, so I'll try to catch up on the lost time. Thank you, Professor Adel Beltagi, for the invitation. And it's a good coincidence. I'm in Cairo, and I can participate in person and interact with you all. So I tailored my slides based on what I have been listening since morning. The first keynote speech, the second keynote speech, and the follow-up questions that were asked. And it's not much to do with genomics, but to do with the enabling environment around it. I lead the soil water agronomy program at ICARDA, so I'll talk more about water management, agronomy aspects that are also essential along with a good cropping variety to have the big bang for your buck. So what has happened in the past 70, 75 years since the end of the Second World War is that there's been mostly global peace, lot of improvement in the economies. People have started earning a lot more. Also, the population has doubled because of peace. And what this has done is that it has doubled the global population. It has helped grow the economy by 7 times, and the grain demand has tripled. So population has doubled, but the demand has tripled because the people are more and more affluent. They're consuming more calories, so that's why the demand is increasing. What it has also done is that human beings are extracting a lot more from nature. Nature has its own regeneration capacity. If the soil gets eroded, it takes a while to rebuild that soil. If you cut a forest, it takes a while the forest to rebuild. So what has happened is that people are extracting a lot more from Earth than Earth can provide. And you can see that by 1980, we had reached the regeneration capacity, and we started exceeding by 20% in 1999. And by now, what we are doing is we need about 2 Earths to support the rate at which we are extracting natural resource base. And by 2050, we may need 2.6 Earths. So it's simply not sustainable. The way the business as usual, the way we are extracting natural resource base for our economic development, for our food security. What it has also done is that there is a higher increase in fossil fuel consumption, which has led to the carbon dioxide level increases. And what it has done to the farmer is that the soils are eroding, the fisheries are collapsing, the water tables are declining, and temperatures are rising. These are some of the new challenges for our farmers today: rising temperatures and depleting water resource base. In spite that, we have a bigger population to feed, and this is a daunting challenge. What green revolution could do 50, 60 years back, we need another green revolution of another kind, because the challenges are complex. They are evolving, and they cannot be dealt with the way we are managing Earth at present. So when we talk about water, how much water are we talking here today? It takes about 1 liter of water to produce 1 calorie of food. 1 liter for 1 calorie of food, and each human being, according to World Health Organization, needs about 2,500 calories per day. So take 2,500 calories, multiply with 1 liter of water, multiply with the total population of the world. That's the amount of water it takes just to feed the people for 1 day. I'm not talking about the whole year, just 1 day. Imagine the amount of water that goes into producing food for all on a daily basis. And like you know, 70, 80, even 90% of all the freshwater resources at present already is used for food production. So if you look at this, For example, rice that we eat, it takes about 3,000 liters of water to produce just 1 kilogram of rice. For wheat, it's about 1,400 liters of water. You can look at your diet, like if you go out for lunch today, if you eat rice, if you eat meat, if you eat lentils, how much water will it take to just fill your plate today? Just imagine that. And then multiply with the global population to see how much water it takes daily to feed the population of the world. Even simple shoes that we are wearing, the leather comes from the livestock, and it takes about 8,000 liters to produce a pair of shoes. So also food is increasingly becoming a national security issue. What you see here, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, what the second keynote speech talked about, how it has adversely affected the whole food security situation globally. Some 100 countries around the world import the wheat they consume, and about 40 countries import the rice that they consume. Countries such as Iran and Egypt here, we are almost importing 50% of all the food that is needed for feeding the population. Yemen imports almost 90%. So if you don't have stability, if you don't have foreign exchange, if you don't have currency to buy food, you cannot be food secure. On the other side, the other side of the coin is countries such as United States, Russia, now Ukraine, Canada, France, Argentina, Australia. These are excess producing countries. They together constitute almost 90% of all the food that gets exported, which is a soft bargaining power. If you can sell food, if you can control the food chain, you can have a strong say around the world. US alone almost controls half of the global food grain. All the aid that it gives, every treaty that it signs, it's a real bargaining power if you can have food under your control. So when you export a kilogram of rice, I said like it takes about 3,000 liters to produce a kilogram of rice. When you export that 1 kilogram of rice, you're not just exporting the rice, you're exporting the 3,000 liters of water from your country, from your farm to the person who will consume that food. So this is called the virtual water. So you're the water that's hidden inside the commodity that is being used. So if you look at this huge number at the bottom of the screen, that's the virtual water annually. This is the amount of water that moves in form of food commodities from one place to another. So it's a huge amount of water that goes into feeding the people, making countries food secure. Switching gears a little, if you look at this map, it's what is showing is that wherever you have food insecurity, wherever you have water scarcity, you find malnourishment, you find poverty, you find fragility, you find that the place doesn't have peace. So all these things go hand in hand. It's like a nexus. Water scarcity leads to food malnutrition. It brings instability. It brings poverty. So some 840 million people around the world are malnourished, and where you find them is where you find dry areas. So dry areas have to be looked at because that's where the burning issue is. That's where the population is rising. That's where the land and water resources are declining. And that's where one should be looking at investing. Now, this is a graphic to show what has happened since the 1960s till recent past. The flat line that you see, the green color line, is a 2,500 acceptable level of calories. And what you see here is that, especially in Asia, in South Asia, because of the Green Revolution, they started to have an increase in the calorie uptake per capita, and now they have passed the 2,500 mark. The developed countries have already been, since long time, consuming a lot more than required calories, and you see problems such as obesity, problems related with diabetes and heart attacks and stuff because of too much of consumption of high-calorie foods. The sad part is the bottom, which is the sub-Saharan Africa, which has lagged behind since the beginning. It is almost a flat line. The technologies, the investment have not really made it to the grassroots level. That's why the sub-Saharan Africa is much below the 2,500 line, and it has remained there for a long time. Now, other problem that we are all facing is that the farmers are losing to the cities. If a decision maker has to decide, how do I distribute water? If the decision maker has, say, 1,000 tons of water to decide what to do with it. If that 1,000 ton of water is given to a farmer who has livestock, who produces milk, that 1,000 ton of water can fetch him about $550 in form of milk. But the politician or the decision maker, if he gives the same water to an industry, say the steel producer firstly generates jobs, secondly pays taxes, and he can earn $14,000 worth of profits with that 1,000 tons of water, which is like 25 times more than a farmer. So if you have water scarcity, how do you decide whether I give it to an industry or I give it to the farming community? It's a huge challenge, and usually farmers are losing out because they don't have a voice on the table. So there are three ways going forward to make the dry areas water secure or food secure. First is that you expand the irrigated area. You take more water out of the rivers, out of the aquifers, and use it for irrigation purposes. That's one way of doing things, but like we all know, all the water resources are fully committed already. There's hardly any water left to give to agriculture unless you take it away from someone else. So this is not a smart way of doing things. The second is expand rain-fed agriculture. So turn the natural areas such as forests, cut down the forest, convert into agricultural land. Again, you are not doing a smart thing by converting all the natural areas, the grasslands, the forest into agriculture. So the third and the smart compromise is what we call increasing water productivity. What the second keynote speech talked about was more crop per drop, increasing the beneficial return on investment. So per drop, how much income can you generate? Per drop, how many kilograms can you generate? In that way, you don't need extra water, you don't need extra land. So going forward, the best way is to increase the water productivity. It can be by having better technologies for water application, fertilizer application, changing the cropping system, and so many other ways. So some bright spots. Till now, I was just painting the sad part of the story. Let me switch gears quickly and talk about some of the bright spots, some of the promising things on the horizon. What we see here is that you have 3G, 4G network even in the most rural areas, more backward areas. So about 72% of all the area is having at least a 2G, 3G or a 4G network. This way, every extension agent doesn't need to visit every farmer to give his advisory. He can simply send out an advisory. A farmer can simply take a picture and send it to the extension agent and seek help. There is also a flattening of the gender gap. Women don't have to feel awkward about reaching out to ask for help if they are the head of the household or a farmer. 26% of the hazardous area is already coming under this 4G network. So harnessing new technologies like 3D printing, nanotechnologies, so many new emerging materials, they all have not made it into agriculture yet. But there is room for improvement. You have artificial intelligence, you have machine learning, you have robotics. There was a question like, how can precision agriculture reach the developing world, the underdeveloped world? I'll show you an example of how ICARDA is trying to customize precision agriculture to serve the developing world farmers. So very quickly, precision agriculture is looking like the next green revolution. What happened was, till now we have had two revolutions in the field of agriculture. The first one happened in the 1930s when mechanization happened. The tractor was introduced into agriculture, and because of mechanization, one farmer was able to produce enough food to feed 26 people. So one farm, 26 people. Then came the Green Revolution in the 1960s, and because of that, one farmer now, because of increased gains in efficiency, was able to produce enough for 156 people. So 1:26 went to 1:156. And what McKinsey is projecting is that if Green Revolution could do this much, then the precision agriculture revolution will help the same farmer produce enough food for 265 people. So this is looking like one of the promising solutions going forward that we are working on. So this is just some of the things that we have done for the developing countries is have smart irrigation advisory, looking at evapotranspiration, looking at the weather information and trying to tell what is the amount of irrigation that should be applied. Smart detection. We have some high resolution motion activated cameras that can take pictures of insects. They have built-in image libraries. They can do detection of these insects and tell you what to do about them. We have smart fertilization, looking at the soil properties, looking at the crop requirement, and we can tell you how much NPK to apply. And everything runs on a smartphone application, which is in the local language. So everything is customized to the local context. We use weather patterns, we use drones, we use remote sensing to send near real-time information to the farmers how to manage their fields. These are two other innovations we have introduced in the dry areas of MENA region. On the left is ultra low energy drip irrigation that we have introduced with help of MIT that runs on 85% lower activation pressure. So you can have solar powered drip irrigation systems in places where there is no electricity. This is a new innovation we are introducing to the MENA region with help of MIT. On the right is another innovation that we are working on with the USDA and University of Minnesota, looking at sensor-based irrigation advisory for Central Asia. So in Tajikistan, we have introduced 300 weather stations now to introduce evapotranspiration-based irrigation advisory. This is another one that my DG talked about, was the regional evapotranspiration network with help of FAO that we have introduced here. And profitable diversified cropping system. There was a presentation just now on the desert farming, use of quinoa, use of sesame, alternate crops which are highly profitable, low water footprint crops that can make the farmer richer. At the same time, we can have diversified food. Instead of just having wheat-based diet, introduce some barley into wheat, and then you can have a lower water footprint. So I'll conclude. This is my last slide. So dry areas are naturally not blessed with ample water resources. We should acknowledge that there is a limit. We can never make dry areas fully food secure. There are some game changers such as happened in the past, like the Green Revolution. We need a new revolution, which hopefully will come from precision agriculture. Also with a young population that is more driven towards apps. You can have Uber kind of an app for tractor rental. You can have so many different new innovations that can happen. So cropping system diversification, new production technologies, protected agriculture, and digital tools hopefully will be the smart way going forward. And hopefully digital transformation will bring transformative change in the lives of the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vinay, for the very informative presentation. And I think that we will have some time for discussion later on, please. Thank you very much.